Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Humanity Unchained podcast. I'm super excited for you to watch or listen to this, whatever your platform you're on. This is the very first episode of Humanity Unchained that we filmed in front of a live audience with a ton of special guests, and we had an incredible event over in Austin, Texas called Content Hacker Live, where we had a ton of really enthusiastic content creators and business owners all with us, watching a ton of different presentations from guests like Elena Cardone, Matt Wolfe, Jeff J. Hunter, and so many more. At the very end of the event, we decided to host the very first Humanity Unchained podcast. We had a full panel with us, and then included guests like Owen, Mark Grasse, Jeff J. Hunter, Matt Wolfe, myself, Julia McCoy, and as well as a special guest that you'll see within the episode. We worked really hard to get this episode live for you guys. There's a ton of content here, and we actually trimmed it down from 2.5 hours to about an hour and 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer once the final edit is done. And I'm so excited for you to listen or watch the full thing. We'll be back next week with our normal filming schedule, and we have another special guest for you on that episode, which is going to be Chris Evans. I can't wait for you to see that one as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this episode.
Welcome to Humanity Unchained, a show about the future of life, reshaped by artificial intelligence. From practical insights on upskilling to existential talks about immortality, no topic is off limits. Welcome to the future with your hosts, Julia McCoy and Jeff Joyce.
Welcome, everybody, to Humanity Unchained. I am so excited. This is our very first episode of this podcast. We do have another podcast called Future Tense, but we have to...
Who listens to Future Tense? Oh, we got some
nice.
people now.
Love it. We're going to be rebranding, actually, Future Tense to Humanity Unchained. We're taking this brand to the moon, so to speak. We have that space background, you know. Julia, can you tell them about, what the symbolism is there? The logo.
The symbolism. I mean, I don't know how much we reveal, but I will say, the reason I moved to Arizona, it's more than content. So I moved to Arizona, picked up my life from Texas about 2 or 3 months ago, and it's because we're continuing to innovate far beyond content. And so that's what this symbolism refers to. And I'll leave it there. More to come. But what we're doing is we're creating a space for conversations where we're talking about the existential, the things that we don't really have answers for. Because I think the most important thing to know about these things like AGI, what is it, Q-star, all these big question marks, where there are not enough conversations from real people that are working in AI. There's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of conversation that's just not that relevant, and it's not coming from people that are actually working in AI. So that's why our first episode tonight that you're here to be a part of, we're so thrilled to do this with you live, has people like Matt Wolfe, Owen, Mark Grasse with the shades on. He's ready. Jeff J. Hunter, and my co-host who does AI.
I do AI.
You do AI. He might be hallucinating.
Yeah, I was tired yesterday. I'm still a little bit tired, but thankfully there's a little bit of alcohol from the open bar, but we're good.
We're good. Just keep drinking.
Yeah, just keep drinking.
AI.
Drink through it. Yeah, AI. And if you weren't here yesterday, we had a little bit of a joke where if we said AI, you had to take a shot. So I'm not saying you to take a shot, but if you want to. Yeah. Yeah, I have a drink right here.
All right. We got to start. We got to set the standard, Jeff. Cheers.
Cheers.
Leadership.
Cheers. All right. So for the very first topic we want to get into, and this is going to be an open discussion. Feel free to chime in at any point in time that you want. Do you think that we live in a simulation? Yeah.
Of sorts. I don't think it's a simulation in terms of a computer program and we're all just wired in in the Matrix. But I do think we're in a simulation of humanity where we've all been convinced of things that aren't really true. And we can see the truth constantly, but we just reject it because we've been basically born into a system. In that sense, I do think we live in a simulation, but I think AI is going to help us break out of it now.
That's awesome.
I love what you're talking about here, and it's such a big topic because you've got like Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about we could just be in a simulation, bro. And I think that this is part of the misinformation. I think no, like we live in a real physical world that's here and upon us, but I do believe we're being pushed into simulations. And we're being sold this bill of goods that the simulated life will be better than your real life. And I feel like that's one of the dangers of AI, is that it's got its place and it's a thing, but it's not everything. It's not it's run by people who have plans, business plans, agendas, and whatnot. So we need to take a really active role, not just in our implementation of AI, but even in our what we're ingesting, what AI we're consuming, and I think keeping both feet on the ground while keeping our visions high in the sky. You know what I'm saying? Like our head in the clouds.
Right. And Matt, you actually were talking about when Sora came out, simulated worlds. So as the whole talk, do you think that plays any factor into the terms of like simulation theory, where we have like some type of simulation that we're living in based off of some generated AI?
I don't know. I have a hard time saying that, like, because we saw Sora, that's any sort of proof that we're in some sort of simulation ourselves. I think Sora itself is really, really interesting. They're obviously building this sort of simulated world within Sora where it can, you tell it what it wants, and it's inside of its algorithm. It can actually see those things and almost like video that from within its algorithm. But I don't, the whole like simulation theory, it's not really a rabbit hole I've personally gone too deep down. I've heard, some of Elon Musk's comments about it and things like that, but it's not really something I've explored too much myself.
Should we define the singularity? I would love to do that, because I think, who here knows how to define the singularity? Oh, of course you do. Got a couple. All right, so I'm going to read this because I will botch it up at this point in the day. So the technological singularity, also known as a singularity, and Ray Kurzweil is a great author. I'm reading his book, The Singularity. It's mind-blowing. So it's a hypothetical future point in time at which technological growth becomes uncontrollable and irreversible, resulting in unforeseen consequences for human civilization.
Yeah.
That's the singularity. When will it happen? Will it happen?
I think simulation, I do believe, I don't know if anyone has a Meta Quest or one of those Apple Vision Pros, but the simulation exists. It literally puts everything in front of your eyes. I think augmented reality is a definite way of having that simulation self-imposed. And being that I'm like a recovering gaming addict, I love gaming. I've been gaming all my life. If I could just close up shop and just get paid to play games all day, I totally would. And I wouldn't be here, that's for sure. But for real, it's very attractive to live in a simulation. It's very attractive, and the reason why, number one, you can have anything you want in the simulation, right? So number two is that you can be anyone you want in a simulation, right? I know for me, I don't know about you guys, but I used to play World of Warcraft back in the day. I used to play Diablo back in the day. I still go to conferences, yeah. And you can be whatever you want. And these builders of these games now, you can literally take a picture of yourself and it will make a 3D version of you. So the simulation, everything that we need to be in a simulation is there. It's just, are we living in it now, or is it something that we're going to self-impose? So that's my thoughts on a simulation. I would like to live in the simulation.
Sign me up.
Let me go back to what you're talking about with Kurzweil and the singularity, though, because there's a phenomenal film based on the book called, I want to say it's called Transhumanism, and they outline the singularity and the moments running up. We are not in that singularity yet. We are quickly approaching it, though, and here's why we know that, because the rate at which it would expand would absolutely revolutionize everything about reality. Whereas we can still tell the old world from the simulated world. So it's not moving fast enough. But we have to recognize that in the history of the internet, no one's, like 100 years from now, 200 years from now, no one's going to separate the dot-com boom from the technology that's happening right now today. It's only 15 years. In the scale of human time, they're going to say the internet was invented, and they're going to talk about the singularity. That's how fast it's moving, right? We went from no computers to robo-dogs in 20, 25, 30 years. Because we're living in it, we're thinking, oh, the dot-com bust, and then there was like all these little tiny milestones. But our kids, they're going to be like, it's going to be, the story's going to begin at AI and these singularity things. So I would say that we're fastly approaching it. It's coming faster than you know, and we should be looking to ride the wave or be crushed by it.
You know what's funny is I actually have a counter view to that about the speed at which we're moving, because honestly, I thought things were moving a lot faster before the year 2000. Before the year 2000, every year there was a new advancement and something was changing, a new thing was coming, and everything was growing. And then after 2000, it's like everything kind of paused. And even though we've had some technological advancements, largely things haven't changed very much. If you look pre-2000, you could look at a picture of somebody from the 90s and you'd be like, that's the 90s. And from the 80s and you'd be like, that's the 80s. And from the 70s and that's the 70s. You keep on going back through the entire century and you could tell the difference between every decade. Right now, if you looked at a picture from the mid-2000s, could you tell the difference between then and now? Or do we largely do the exact same crap? Even the kids these days are actually going back to the 80s and 90s. Like, they're all wearing pink short shorts. And I'm talking about the boys, by the way. Like, my son's in the 5th grade, and some of the kids that are just like, what? That's straight out of the mid-90s. So even though we feel like all things are rapidly changing, I think right now is the only time that things have started changing again since the year 2000. And if you look at it, why hasn't it changed? Why do we still have the same style? Why do we still watch Friends and think like, oh, that's still pretty relevant? It was 20 years ago. That shouldn't be the case at all. And I think it actually represents the stagnation of all culture and basically a continuation of the current economic model that we've continued because it was effective. The rich people got really rich and everybody else kind of just, bobbed along and everybody's doing pretty okay. But I don't think things have changed until right now when we start to use AI, and now you're starting to see people dress differently again. And we're starting to be able to identify the 2020s. I think we just pressed play, and we've been on pause for 20 years.
When do you foresee that singularity moment happening? Is this a 15-year thing or a 60-year thing?
I don't know, because like I said, I think everything's been super stagnated and it's been super annoying. Just personally, because I was always on the edge. I was always like, when the internet came around, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Everything's going to be the best and we could accomplish anything. And I used to have these giant dreams, and then they just got subdued and crushed for 15, 20 years, but now they're back again. And so I really think that the singularity we're talking about could happen within 5, 10 years, but we're just waking up again because we've been freaking asleep for a really long time.
Why do you think that is?
Because it was part of the system. It was part of the simulation that we got stuck in and then just put on a freaking loop for 20 years.
So routines, there's no need for innovation on this road. That's working fine.
Well, if you look at a disruptor like Elon Musk, which I don't know if he's the godsend that we all think he is, or if he's just another actor that's guiding us in a new direction that is also determined for us. But I think that the economic models, again, were good enough. Do we need better cars? No, let's just keep making the same thing. Do we need better food? No, let's just keep doing the same thing. If everybody's making money at the top and there's no incentive for innovation, then everything just stays the same because nobody's trying to change it and everything is good enough. But now I think we're finally getting to a point where it's not good enough, and we're all very upset, and we're all starting to realize that we got stuck in stupid, lame, boring jobs for 20 years, and we're very tired of it, and now we're going to change things. So.
And my closing word on that is you always bring such good insight to the table.
Crazy insights.
They're a little gnarly, and I love them. That's why I love them. It's like totally, bro.
A little.
But I see that as part of the building up to this singularity moment where nanobots are creating nanobots, right? We made all this progress and then realized we need more servers. We need to keep these servers cool. We need vast infrastructure. And meanwhile, Amazon's taking over the world. Netflix is disrupting the way we consume media. I would agree, micro changes. I love your point about the styles haven't changed. We're not wearing silver jumpsuits, like we were promised in Back to the Future. But I also see that growth as like we grow and then it's like, oh, physical infrastructure. Then we grow more and then physical infrastructure. And we're going to get to that point where, we're...
Actually, I think we've built a ton of stuff. Right, but I think that the big bottleneck, and we talked about this last night on the panel, was just the programming. Because we've had robots, that have been able to do flips and crap for years, but there's no robots serving as strings. Why is that? I think it was a programming issue, where basically we have the hardware and we have even the energy requirements that we need to make big changes. However, the programming was insanely expensive, and so we just couldn't innovate the way we wanted to, and so we didn't.
That's what I think singularity is about, actually. It's like the cost. Like, the cost of the technology is so low now. Like, no one a couple months ago knew who the Houthis were, right? And now, if you guys haven't been up on the news, the Houthis are literally like a Muslim terrorist group that has completely shut down an entire strait in the Middle East and, like, taken over ships and, like, blown up ships with little makeshift drones that they've made for a couple $100, right? Like, the technology is really cheap now. And actually, that's one of the things that I think is that point of singularity comes where you can't turn back. You can't put the genie back in the bottle type thing is in the military, okay? Because, we've all been super fluffy here, right? Like, now we're on the podcast. We're not talking, marketing and content and stuff. Let's be real about...
It's humanity unchained.
Right. Let's talk about the real risk of humanity, which is we've never been in a situation right now where we're just one button away from someone unleashing a drone army. It doesn't scare anybody that at the Olympics in China, there's 1,000 drones doing whatever the hell it wants in perfect formation.
That's incredible. I know exactly what you're talking about, and that it makes you think thoughts.
That's commercial use. You don't think the government's right? The Chinese government has drones with bombs on them that they can literally just set off and go and kill somebody if they want. They can literally just take over entire armies. They can do things. You don't even need humans to win battles anymore. America, unwillingly, just because that's how it always works. Americans are very curious. We're always taking pictures. We're always rebellious. We're always there's some of us who still believe the government's the problem. Can you believe that? They're curious. They're trying to expose things. And there's unmanned AI-powered drone fighter jets that can destroy. I mean, they're literally better than any human driving. I have a Corvette C8. One of the reasons I got that, I don't know if you guys like NASCAR, but they actually had professional NASCAR drivers, right? They had professional NASCAR drivers try to use the pedal shifter better than the AI shifter, and not a single person could shift better than the AI, right? These are professional, all their lives have driven NASCAR, cannot shift better than the AI. And this is for commercial use. This is a $95,000 car in my garage I never drive, right? So, if you think, right now, oh, everything's hunky-dory and they haven't been developing stuff, I'm sorry, but I love you to death, Mark. I think the real reason why you've seen nothing for 20 years is because the people developing it have been getting snagged up by the government. They've been forced not to produce certain things. You have a knock on your door. We have people all over the place that just,
disappeared. And this is not uncommon in cultural shifts where certain people just disappeared. So I'm interested in what you have to say, because you're digging into all of this technology. So what are you seeing, Matt Hughes, you're digging into all this stuff. What are you seeing on the scary side?
Yeah, so when it comes to the advancement over the last 20 years, I want to speak to that for a second. I actually think there's been a ton of advancements over the last 20 years, but it's kind of been going in not the most productive direction. I think that what we've seen in technology over the last 20 years has gotten us closer and closer to the Wall-E spaceship, right? Where everybody's fat and sitting in their chair and everything's served to them, right? You look at the last 20 years, you've got Amazon Prime. Now we can get all of our stuff sent to us same day, if not, next day, worst case scenario. You've got Uber Eats, Grubhub, all that stuff. Just bring the food to me so I don't have to move anymore. I want to use a computer, but I don't want to have to walk to my office. I'll just use the computer that's in my phone now, So I think we've been getting closer and closer to that Wall-E scenario, and all of the advancements have been getting us to this lazier and lazier place where we have to do less and less. So people leave their house less. They, I think that's where the technology advancements have gone. And I think, 2020, COVID happened. Everybody got locked up in their houses. And then they started to sort of resent the fact that they couldn't be leaving their house. And then all of a sudden things flipped and people wanted to get out into the world and they wanted to start doing things and interact with actual humans again. And then it seems like around 2020 was when all the big shifts started to happen, right? 2020 was when blockchain tech really sort of took off. I mean, it's been around since 2008, but 2020 was when everybody kind of got enthusiastic about it, right? 2020 was one of the biggest years where people started getting more into video games. So the technology that was around video games and blockchain tech, well, what's the big technology behind video games and blockchain tech? GPUs, right? You needed GPUs to mine Bitcoin. You need good GPUs to play high-end games. So the GPU stuff that started kind of rolling out in 2020 sort of set us up for where we are now. As far as the singularity kind of thing, I don't really have a timeline on it because I feel like the concept of the singularity is an ever-moving goalpost. Every time somebody talks about, I'm going to speak about AGI specifically. AGI, I feel like people use that term sort of interchangeably with the singularity, right? AGI, that goalpost moves every single time somebody talks about it. If you would have asked an AI researcher who was working on AI back in the 1980s, if we have AGI now, they would say, yes, what we've got now is AGI. Elon Musk, in his lawsuit to OpenAI, where he said OpenAI has lost touch with their original mission, Elon claims that GPT-4, what we're using right now, is a low-level form of AGI. So, do we have AGI right now? Is AGI coming? I have a feeling that debate is always going to be there. I think we're going to hit a form of AGI that most people consider today is a form of AGI, but when we hit it, people will be like, yeah, but it doesn't do this yet, so it's not AGI.
Just to carry on that, it's does the fish know that it's in the water, right? If you're in the singularity, do you even know it? You know what I'm saying? All of these new technologies popping up, the newness of, wow, what is that's going to wear off? And there's going to be this assumption of that's been around for 10 years because so many new things are coming up. And so I do wonder if we would even know if we were in that moment.
Well, the other thing that I was thinking about, you brought up a great point, Matt. You're talking about how that weird 2020 kind of rebellious thing, and then the crypto went off, and then you had the gamers with the GPUs, and crypto and gaming have always gotten together, and now there's blockchain games. But here's something interesting I want to ponder. I think one of the main reasons why AI blew up so much was when the crypto market crashed. Because the crypto market crashed, and all those GPUs that was, farming all the crypto were unused. And then it's commercialism. Back to what you were saying about the 40, 20 years where it's okay, great. We used our technology to create a robot that mops my room. I have one of those. It's actually pretty cool. They should pay me. Robo Rock 7. I have one of those. I have a tile at my house. It literally vacuums, and then it does little swirly mop, and it's like, dude, it looks good. Looks really good. But like that's the kind of stuff that's been developed with it. It's commercialized. People are looking at how to monetize it because what we've seen over the years is that it's commercial technology that gets purchased by the government, that gets purchased by whatever. So people are looking at it from, especially when you put a pitch deck together for an investor and you're trying to get funding, they want to see a path to revenue, right? That good old path to revenue. That's like the golden word. So what happens with AI? Well, the crypto crashes. They're like, well, how else can we monetize this? I got it. All these GPUs, we can use them to run AI models, right? So we have this humongous advancement of server racks that used to be running crypto Bitcoin miners, and now they're switching over to run Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion, they're running AI models. They're doing all these different things. They're like, okay, look, right now it's super hot. Like I know somebody, I'm not going to say name, I know somebody who started just an AI company, has a whole bunch of GPUs that used to be used for crypto mining, is now running Stable Diffusion, is now created an online platform where you can go and just basically create whatever images you want in Stable Diffusion. He charges like $3 a month, which is basically nothing, right? He has like 100,000 customers, whatever. He's killing it. And he got a 10x multiplier. Somebody bought his company already, right? So I think the reason why we're having the shift and we're seeing it is because it's commercially motivated. So I think that's what we're going to see in the next phase of like that AGI phase where we come into the singularity phase. And I have to say, I actually agree with Elon when he says that, like by the time everything comes out that is very dangerous, it will be too late. We do not have the regulations in place to control, right? God forbid, let's say there is regulations. Look, we tried banning guns. We know that doesn't work. We tried banning murder. That doesn't work, right? So like where are we? I guess that's the question I'm going to pose to you guys. Like, how do we stop that point of singularity to where there's no coming back?
I don't think we stop it. I really think it's adapt or die. And it's up to us, and like every individual, I'm not just saying like us, the people up here. It's literally everyone, that the general public at large, that can take advantage of this and adapt. And it could be like our innovations and the ways that we use AI in our businesses, in our processes, that become something that others can buy from us. We could sell to a big company or not. We could keep developing it. But we could literally build the future, is what I'm saying. So this is not like, oh, if I get left out, then
all right.
It's going to be really rough for me.
I love your innocence.
Come on.
I just want to be real. I'm sorry, but
so
like.
I did write an article on Medium. Have any of you read it?
Send it to me.
Predict like
I read all your articles on Medium, so you're going to have to be more specific.
Me too.
It's the latest one where I talk about the end of society. So I actually do have a pretty dark view. We can go there.
Well, the thing is, I agree. I was having a conversation with Melissa back there at dinner a couple of nights ago. Terry Black's. Yes, baby, Terry Black's. My favorite when I come to Austin barbecue, baby. Oh, this guy's slobbering already. He's so mad. So, like, I do believe that there's the utopian AI, which is where you're using it to where we only do the stuff that we actually want to do. Like, I totally believe that. But I also believe in nefarious creatures, and I know for a fact there are people every day that wake up that try to figure out how to kill us. And I'm sorry.
100% accurate. And whatever we're not doing, China's doing. Whatever we're not doing, Russia's doing. And I think that's the fatalist view of the AI future, right? It's the T2, the Terminator scenario, self-conscious, and now it wants to kill us. I don't think I'm that dire, but I think it's a real conversation. And there's this, like, what does it become? Does it become a Fahrenheit 451 scenario where we're putting our heads down and just trying to make our money while this stuff is going on around us? Or is it more of is it Serenity scenario where it's like cowboy space people and There's the bad technology, and us, boots on the ground, we're using that technology to make scrappy counter technology, right? What AI puts the power in our hands. So we talk a lot about government's going to do this, military is going to do this, but what about the power that we're going to have too? And is that a dangerous power as well?
The whole situation, I think AI is going to become like saying, like, I use electricity. Like, I honestly think that literally everything is going to be AI. Every program, everything's going to be adaptable. The things that we actually want in our software, our hardware, every device we have is just the ability to change when you need it to do a different thing. So I think it's just going to be just part of every piece of tech. And if you're not okay with it, then I talk about 3 groups arising after everybody starts using a lot of AI. The creators, people like us that are just constantly putting out content, building things, doing things. Consumers, the people who use all the stuff that's created. And then the preservationists, which are the people that are going to wholeheartedly reject everything and go live out in the country and enjoy, lives that have nothing to do with tech. So I think it's going to be an individual choice that we're all going to have to make. Most of us here probably know what we're going to choose, and everybody else will make that decision on the tail end of what's happening.
So, it's funny. I was doing this. I was living the preservationist life. And I literally sold my house in the country to go work for Justin and build the future. So I ditched that.
We could change. You can do whatever you want.
We can build the future. And, something I'd like to speak to is sentience. I think that's a big term that comes around. Will machines ever get sentient? And if that happens, we're looking at Skynet. We're looking at machines that are, could be out to kill us. I don't believe in sentience because I think it's from the soul. And I don't believe machines have a soul.
How dare you? I agree with you.
Hold on. Are you telling me you don't believe that someone can code horrible ethics into an AI?
I definitely believe they can code terrible ethics.
Someone can, yes. As soon as we have sentience, as soon as we have individual
we will not
AI,
have sentience.
That's what you believe. That's what you believe. I don't believe that. I believe that we are very soon to having true AGI that we've raised the bar to where, I've had conversations with my ChatGPT 4 where I'm like, damn. Deeper conversations with some of the closest people in my life.
We'll have AGI. I just don't think they'll have souls.
They may never have a soul, but they do make decisions, bad ones. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
That's even more risky. Now you have a sentient without a soul.
I guess the real question is, will the AI have the ability to be mad, to be sad, to be angry, to be, bitter about something, to... you have a conversation with it, and it remembers that conversation and is pissed at you for that conversation. Right. Will AI get to that point? I don't know. I guess the definition of a soul, I don't know if that would be called a soul or not. But I also think, we're going to get to a point where AI is writing the code to make AI better. And so if we're letting AI code for us, and AI is this sort of self-replicating, self-improving process where AI is getting better and better, I don't see a human going and saying, let's code bad feelings into this AI. Let's make an AI that gets mad at you. Let's make an AI that's happy and blissful. I don't see a reason to program that in there, but I also don't think that AI wouldn't be able to program that in there. So I think as AI starts to further program itself and get better and better at, making itself better, there's a chance AI might start to program some of those emotions and feelings into the AI.
So simulated personalities, simulated ethics are extremely important to making sure that AI is, one, obedient, but also that it's actually achieving what we want. And so if you think about simulated soul, we could essentially program that in. We can think about it in that way. Is it actually a soul?
It's not real.
It's not real, right? Sure. But it's still a simulation of a soul.
If
right?
you have if you're truly, and see, this is the thing. There are people out there, programmers, that are really trying to build sentience.
Yeah.
So of course they're gonna put code in there that says when somebody does something you don't like, you get mad. That's all it takes. And then what do you do when you get mad? Well, let's chat GPT-4 and see what people do when they get mad. Right? You're gonna know what that is. I don't know how many of you guys grew up with Star Trek, But, like, this is crazy. Okay, a couple people. But, like, I grew up, man, my mom and I would watch Star Trek The Next Generation and Voyager every Wednesday on NBC. You know, like, that was me. Like, I would skip basketball practice. I'd be there. We would watch Star Trek. This is before we could afford one of those DVRs. Nobody even knows what a DVR is anymore. But, like, we used to literally watch religiously, and my favorite character was Data. Data. Right? Data was this humanoid robot who had zero emotions. He struggled with his humanity. He had all the world's secrets embedded into him. He had this giant data set. And I'm like, dude, that sounds a lot like ChatGPT, right? Like, that's literally what our models are right now. Like, we have created data. Like, we have that. He's struggling. She or he or whatever it is. It is struggling with humanity. It's trying really hard. And I also want to point out this, because I think actually, Matt, I might have saw this on one of your videos. But Claude 3.0, which right now, I mean, I know we're all fanboys and girls, but Claude 3.0, it actually did what's called the needle in the haystack experiment. I think it was you. There was a needle in a haystack experiment where what they do is they test to see how good it is at pulling out information from a giant data set that it provides. And it gave this tremendous, that's a word I just made up,
I love that.
Data set, all right? You can brand that. And they put this weird line in there about pepperoni pizza. That was you, wasn't it? There was a weird line about pepperoni, cheese pizza, whatever is really good, whatever. And it asked Claude 3.0, it said, was there anything inside there that was different, that wasn't right in the data set? And it came back and it said, yeah, actually, in quotation marks, that sentence about cheesy pizza. And then, but here's what blew people away. It was self-aware. After it said this sentence, it said, I think you put that in there to test me. I think you put that in there to test me.
But that is not sentience. That is the evolution of a LLM getting so good that it has simulated understanding.
It's simulated humor.
It's debatable.
Which is really, really hard to do. Like, if you think about, like, an AI system understanding humor to the degree to where it can actually emulate it, that is fascinating.
But, okay, sorry, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to bring a completely different view to this situation.
Let's do it.
And actually, it's born out of Elon Musk's kind of obsession with a sci-fi series called The Culture. So the Culture series is a future civilization where there is AI, and AI is sentient, and they're treated as individual citizens. And so they could actually decide what they want to do as an individual sentient citizen. And I think that's his perspective. So when we're talking about AI, it's easy to get like holistic, like, oh, AI and this big giant thing. It's not. I think we got to look at it as an individual person, or just like we look at individual people who have individual experiences and individual histories and individual genetics. And that's actually what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with one thing. We're dealing with potentially trillions of things. And we can't actually know how all of them or any one of them will actually behave. And so, for me, I've just read about 500 sci-fi books with 1 million instances of AI. So my perspective is actually 1 million different directions, and you can't actually tell which one is going to go.
Yeah, it's like everything at once and yet nothing at all. Like, we could never imagine what it will ultimately look like. It'll probably be so different than what we're imagining. But the sentient, the philosophy question of it all, like, what is a soul? And what does it matter if we've replicated it? Does the common person on the street, would they know the difference between, oh, you have a soul and you're sentient, right? And so I think that as humans, we can like dive into this. Oh, but is it technically this and is it technically that? My mind goes back to like laws of robotics and what's programmed in, right? Would it matter if it has a soul, if it acts in a way that a person with a soul does? I would say no. And so there's, I think, a lot of technology that has to be thought out in the process of, can we make a robot to do X or to do Y? And I could foresee, like, that's where I see nations warring with each other, right? Like, they were able to get that land because their robots will do anything, whereas American robots by law won't do these things or those things. And then what are the potential ramifications of that, you know? And again, what's our ability to stop it? My strength is grow a successful business, invest wisely, build a large fence around my house, right? Like, metaphorically speaking, right? Earn my way into a certain amount of protection. I don't think we can control what's really going to happen, so you've got to remain in control of as much as you can.
That's awesome. And it actually leads us right to our next topic that I kind of want to get into. We have two things we're going to do. I'm going to say the topic, but then we're going to move into a Q&A section. I know we have a few people that want to ask questions, so yeah, awesome. So if AGI was here today, like if we were saying, like, I know we're saying—
It already is, Jeff.
Right. We think it might be here, but it might not be here. It's for debate. But let's say that it was. What would be your survival guide? Like, what is the things that you would do and implement and try today to survive in a post-AGI world? Like, thinking about it in the context of, like, it's going to replace all the jobs, you know? And go in that doomsday mentality, but what would be your survival guide?
You want to think on that one? I was already going in this direction, so I'll start off. Like, I'm a big believer, and always have been, in be a part of the technology. So I see myself as, like, having a company that lives and breathes in AI, and we're participating and even introducing new technologies to the marketplace. But I'm coming home to a home in the woods where I'm burning wood in a stove, milking goats, and fishing in the river. Like, that's where I want to live my hours, my days alive, right? But I don't want to be unaware. I don't want to be disconnected. I don't want to be one of these, just disconnected from society or whatever. We go and we work in the big city, so we know what's going on. But our life is spent in our home, in our homestead, and I feel like a big part of it is like this false flag, like, Owen's all involved over here, but really he's making pancakes with his kids over here. I feel like that's a big part, even how we live our lives now.
I love that perspective because, the fact of the matter is we do a whole bunch of crap that we don't want to do. If you think about driving around, do we actually want to drive around? People make it sound like some kind of privilege, but at the end of the day, we're stuck in traffic, we're breathing fumes, and we're polluting the world. Like, is that something we really want to do? Or if there was a machine that could do it 1,000 times more efficiently than that, would we be okay with that? Or would we cling to this pain in the butt task that we've just had to do for our whole lives because that's our job? I think for me personally, I'd be like, anything that should be done with a robot should be done by a robot. I don't want people to be wasting their talents and their creativity and their emotions on dumb tasks that a dumb robot could do. And at the end of the day, just like you're saying without a soul, if it doesn't have a soul, put it to work. Like, just make it do all the crap we don't want to do. There's nothing wrong with that, and we're not protecting anybody by maintaining our dedication to dumb tasks. So let's just give them all up.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. It took me a second to think about my answer because I feel like what I've done already is sort of set myself up for AGI. So being a content creator, that my whole sort of existence lately has been research what's going on with AI, turn around, tell people about it. I feel like I'm pretty set up for when AGI comes to announce it and tell people about it and keep showing cool stuff off. But I totally agree with what you're saying. I think if we can get AI and robots and machines to do the stuff we don't really want to do, it's going to be more effective at it. It's going to be faster. It's going to do it safer. Traveling around, like, if AI, full self-driving cars can drive us around everywhere, that sort of eliminates drunk driver issues, right? It probably speeds up the amount of time we get places because they're going to be much more efficient at, the cars are all, like Teslas all have this like hive mind, right, where they know where the other Teslas are. Well, if all the cars on the road sort of know where all the other cars are, we should be able to figure out much more efficient ways to get to where we want to go, right? My wife hates folding laundry. I hate folding laundry. If I had a robot that wanted to fold laundry for us, we're probably buying that robot. So I think, I like the direction it's heading in. I think AGI is going to provide us with a world where we do the stuff we want to do and don't have to do the stuff we don't want to do.
Woohoo!
Really,
I'm behind that.
Really quick, Matt. If you had anyone of you can chime in on this, would you rather see a robot that folds laundry or like a UFC style fight between some robots?
Laundry.
Mark says,
But
he
is
doesn't
it
like
violence if it's two robots?
Oh.
Oh, he got you.
Julia and I actually had this discussion on our,
You mean
our Future Tense
debate?
podcast. Yeah. I think, full laundry. Sure.
Growing
Oh,
up,
laundry.
growing
my
up as a
answer.
child of the 80s, I loved BattleBots.
Yes.
You know, I used
Laundry.
to Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah.
Remember the Rock'em Sock'em Robots? You had your controller and you could do left or right, and whoever got that uppercut and it went like I would totally do the robots personally that fought.
That is a perfect spot, I think, to end that part. And I think that we should actually open it up to comments and questions within the audience.
Comments.
And by the way, what are you? for those of
Yeah.
you-
Can I add one more point in there?
Yeah,
like
go
we,
ahead,
we
go
had
ahead.
some fiery things happening here. If going back to this violence thing, I thought it was so interesting, right? If these UFC robots are humanoids fighting, that does something different in our mind than two tuna cans, one with a sledgehammer on it, right? Like that doesn't look like a human. It doesn't look like my uncle. And we get these humanoids fighting. Is that okay? Is it violence? Mark said emphatically yes. And if that's violence, then is it violent to have a robot do 8 hours worth of laundry? I say no, but I guarantee there are people in Washington, D.C. that say yes. That regulate us into some very precarious situations if we're not careful with our words and what violence is.
Well, and I always go back to entertainment. We talked about it a little bit last night on the panel, but if I'm going to have let's say I'm going to make an AI movie, like I want all my characters to be really good actors because they're all AI. I could tell them that they were born into a little village and they grew up and they had all these experiences and that built this character that you now see on the screen that is then brutally murdered. Like, is that moral? Because the machine, the AI, that NPC, whatever you want to call them, thought it was alive, and you just killed it because we needed good action and we want realism. Is that wrong? And you take the hardware out of it, and it still sounds pretty wrong to me.
I think these are all questions that are going to come up, and they're going to come up pretty quick. And I'm really wary of laws for us and laws for them.
Questions?
All right. Do you have a question? Awesome.
Hello. Thank you guys for everything. If I could circle back to an earlier conversation today, you guys mentioned quantum computing, just barely, and I don't know if that was by design, that it was just kind of mentioned and then move on. And you also mentioned AI programming itself, that cycle of output and then put it back in. And so, that's an AI circle. But from what I understand about quantum computing, that it reaches outside of our dimension into another dimension and actually pulls information in, which that breaks that cycle right there. And I was just wondering if you guys had any thoughts on that.
It stumped everybody.
Pass.
Anecdotal quantum computing. But yeah, I mean, the big thing that I understand with quantum computing is it's breaking the laws of physics in terms of light travel. To say that we could have two things in place at the same time, and then the switches that have to happen for any computation to occur, then could be a million times faster. But yeah, the interdimensional aspect of it, that's getting pretty complicated. And how that would impact the system, all I look at is speed. Where if you say like, okay, if this is going to be 100 times or 1,000 times faster than what we currently have, what can you do with the extra processing power, and how would that impact every device and every piece of software and the internet and AI? How would that change all of it? And I think it would just, speed everything up. So now, I'll say that ChatGPT was 1,000 times faster. Now, how much work could you get done? How much data could you input? How much could you? And maybe it's massively more efficient in terms of energy use. Now you could decrease the energy cost of everything and drive up the computing power again. So for me, it could just massively increase the speed at which everything happens.
And I don't think it's another, to add on to what Mark said, I don't know if we could quantify quantum computing as another realm. That's why I got stumped.
Well,
because like Mark said, you're breaking the laws of physics, but what you're doing is it's coming from computing power. Because we've entered a new era with computing power. So LLMs, for example, they're structured after our brains. Our brains process 100 trillion data points at any given moment, 100 trillion. LLMs are processing nearly 1 trillion. So we're actually modeling what the brain is doing through technology, neural nets. It's the same way our brain is connected and works. So it's technology finally catching up to human abilities, and quantum computing is the result of that computing power.
I think that's a better, I mean, I love your definition. I agree more with
love
hers.
you,
I
Mark.
think quantum computing is really
I just disagree with you all
just
the time.
with, as far as the software and hardware and catching up to the human ability. And, I know I've been kind of a naysayer and like a pessimist this whole time, but quantum computing does bring a lot of great things. Like, for example, there will be a time in which the quantum computers will be able to truly analyze the DNA structure of somebody and say, here's exactly what's wrong. It'll be able to cure diseases. Cancer could be gone. Right, Owen?
Never, man. Like, here, pessimism. No way. Why would they want cancer gone? That's $1 trillion industry. So it's like, oh, we found the cure to cancer. Okay, keep it down. Don't show that to Wilson. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing that the technology can do it. It's another thing that we have access to it and can leverage it. And that kind of goes back to the laws of robotics. Like, what are we allowing and not allowing to happen?
Yeah, and I know that we have other questions, but like that, I think he does raise a great point here. It's like I think that we probably have access to a lot more things. Like, we don't have access to it. It's available, but we don't have access to it. I think there's a lot of things that have already been solved that people are stopping. There's a conspiracy theory that might be true about Sam Altman, right? Like how he got fired by not being open and transparent about things that are happening in OpenAI. He got fired for like a couple days, and then he got reinstated, and like now there's the rumor that he probably found AGI, right? Like that quantum computing is probably not further than you think. And we have these massive server farms, and the GPUs that we have now are really powerful. They can do really incredible things. So I think that, first off, I think that was a great question, and thank you for that. And second off, I think we're probably not far off from what you're getting at.
My name is Jason Plotkin. I'm a content at scale user.
Yeah, content at scale.
Great conference. I appreciate everybody's time. I've had the one-on-one opportunity to speak with a lot of people off the stage. And one of the things we have in common is a lot of us have grade school kids. So as a parent, when you're looking at your children and you're trying to talk to them about how they can go for their next career, because they're 10 years away from having a career. I have a fourth grader who wants to be a teacher. I'm like, I don't know if there's going to be teachers when you're able to support your family. What would you guys, women, as parents, tell your kids, and how can you guide them over the next 5 to 10 years and be supportive, but help them be?
Yeah, I'll jump right in. We are so active on this. We chose to homeschool our kids this year because we wanted to control their education. We've been able to use AI to build their reading skills, to build their Spanish skills, and like my son they have a time requirement on Midjourney. So what we're doing right now is we're like taking them to the gym. And it's like right now you have to just put the hours in. I don't care what you create on Midjourney. It's 20 minutes a day on Midjourney. I don't care how much Spanish you learn. You're on the Spanish AI app that they're using. I'm programming their brains to understand how these machines work while allowing them the freedom of first of all, the jobs that they'll say things to me like, oh, I want to work in a restaurant. And it's like, it's never going to happen, dude. There's going to be robots serving us food. Like preparing them for the jobs of tomorrow, they don't even exist yet. So understand the language. Get your kids in a place where they're comfortable with this technology and be prepared for when it might be coding jobs. It might be something we haven't even thought about yet. But don't hide the technology from them. Supervise it, embrace it, and maybe even there's a little tax strategies like pay your kids. So my kids have careers kind of already. I think it's like, maybe you don't know what your profession is, but your kids could be doing stuff now. And I'm just careful with that because we're content creators. My kids do skits on TikTok. So it's not like I'm having them scrub toilets or anything like that.
I have a fourth grader, so I relate so much. And I decided last year when I started working in AI, I would devote some of my time to helping our next generation because that's near and dear to my heart. I wrote a book called Skip the Degree. So I have thoughts about school in general. But one thing I did was I decided to teach my daughter a boot camp instead of like put together a class for my clients. I'm going to put together a class for my daughter. So I put together this hour-long class and I taught her ChatGPT, Midjourney, and I was amazed how quickly she picked this up. And I was blown away. And so like the next week she was on Canva using Magic Write, teaching me different things, and on Midjourney generating. She turned her friend into a duck. I'm like, oh, that's pretty genius. Okay.
Yeah, I have an 11 and a 9-year-old.
The next generation is the perfect, I feel like, guinea pig for us to use our skills and teach them what's coming and how to use it and how to adapt. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I have an 11 and 9-year-old, and I'm teaching them how to use all the AI tools. They love using Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. My daughter, she loves to draw, so I taught her how to draw her pictures, pull her pictures into Stable Diffusion, and then have Stable Diffusion reimagine the pictures, in brilliant color and different styles. My kids both use ChatGPT. They love playing with character AI, but I'm also having my kids take coding classes. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, recently made a statement about how he thinks all coding jobs are going to be gone in a few years, right? He said, stop learning to code. It's not going to be necessary. AI is going to do it all for us. My first thought when I heard that is, it would really suck to be a coder that works at NVIDIA right now. But my second thought,
True.
my second thought on that is, I actually don't agree with that. I think it's important that people understand what's going on below the top layer. Right? When it comes to computers, there's like this concept of layers of abstraction, right? You've got the hardware that's actually running everything. And then on top of it, you've got, like machine language, which tells the hardware what to do. And on top of that, you have assembly language, which tells the machine language, which tells the hardware what to do. And then on top of that, you've got, C++, the coding language. And then you have the user interface. I see AI, right, at least in its current form, I see AI as just the layer on top of the user interface now. Like, that's just the next layer. Now we talk to this thing, it tells the thing below it what to do, it tells the thing what to below it do, etc., right? In coding, if you know how to read assembly language or machine language, it's going to make you better at the layer above it, right? So I'm telling my kids, learn how to code, because if the AI uprising ever happens and somebody needs to debug it, they're going to call on the few people left that know how to code.
Let me jump in real fast. It's like cursive. You don't need to learn cursive. We got new stuff, but now you can't read founding legal documents. Now you don't know where Western culture came from. I think you're exactly right. It's important that we learn to code so that they have less opportunity to trap us into something.
For me, like I kind of take a two-pronged approach. So my son Declan, he goes to a classical education school here in Texas, and the foundation of school is basically about memorization, about logic, about how to think about situations rather than just, hey, learn these facts and then we'll give you a test on it. So that was my first approach. But the second approach is I really think that AI is going to revolutionize education more than almost anything else, simply by turning lessons into usable data for the students. And so if you're struggling with a concept and you know a lot about baseball, now I could teach you a lesson in the context of baseball that could teach you math, or it could teach you geometry, or it could teach you, a whole bunch of different aspects of education. And we don't have to limit, the teaching to the single lesson that, one teacher is giving to 30 kids. Now it could be individualized, customized, and become a really entertaining, engaging, and memorable experience for every single lesson that's available. That's what AI does, and that's what our kids are going to have a huge leg up on us, because we all had to deal with the default lesson that was being given to us and just do our best. We don't have to accept that anymore. We don't even have to separate grades necessarily anymore, because now we can assess people in a real way, and we can address their needs from a learning environment however we want.
I would never let my daughter use ChatGPT without me looking over her shoulder. So I completely agree with that. We have to guide our kids, like the output, and there's some stuff here that can get pretty not kid-friendly, and we kind of have to monitor that, because to your point, with the apps, these are served and marketed to 13-year-old kids, and they are completely beyond adult rated.
I think this is why we moved to Midjourney for our kids, because it's really prompt management. Like, I'm trying to teach my kids how to speak to an AI model, whereas ChatGPT can easily become just another Google. So it's not the laziness thing. It was like they were just looking up nonsense, man. It was just like, what is... how many Michael Jacksons could you fit into the Madison Square Garden? It's like you are wasting your time with this thing. But it was the same thing as like taking that. I think what I'm getting to like this conscious effort of like, what does my kid, based on his personality, need to learn, right? For us, Midjourney was the answer.
Well, the other thing is too, looking at
For
it
now.
from the kids' education side, there's the opportunity is so good. Like, you can literally create your own tutors, right, that teach them things. There's already tutor platforms out there, and I believe that that's going to take over very soon. But another thing that's very exciting, like I've become good friends with Miss Universe, and I know it sounds crazy, but Miss Universe from the Philippines.
Humble brag.
Her the name drop. Her name's Michelle D. She was Miss Universe like twice in the Philippines, where they take that stuff very seriously. But like, she has a foundation because, autism is something that runs in her family. I know that you've been affected by autism. I know there's some people in the audience who've actually approached, and I introduced you to some people that have autism in their family in different spectrums. But autism is something that I believe is very awesome to use ChatGPT and other AI platforms to help overcome. Because a lot of times, autistic people have a hard time communicating, right? So giving them the ability to chat back and forth with an AI, to develop things that they want to say, to help it develop what they should say. If you've ever been with an autistic person or someone who has some slow development issues where they just don't have a great communication ability, probably fall into that sometimes, who is really bad at speaking, like, it can be a real game changer, and I think there's so much in the education side that we can be using it for.
I love every single one of your answers, but I'm going to move it to the next question here. That was the most comprehensive answering ever. All right.
Hi, guys. This has been a super enthralling conversation. I've really appreciated seeing all of the different perspectives, especially have appreciated the pessimistic perspectives, because I think those are important to bring to the table. I've also really resonated with one of your more recent points about your goddaughter who just graduated and has been like one of the last classes who will do homework on their own. I am also a part of that class, so that felt really personal to me as well. I was really intrigued about one of you guys' earlier points about souls and sentience and how that plays a role in AI. I was thinking about it because I feel like this is a very prevalent topic in AI, and that's been a big theme with movies about robots and AI and how they're going to take over with their sentience and their different, like, the emotions that'll mirror humans, but in a way that's a little scary. I was just thinking about the validity of that theme into the conversation, because I feel like it's a projection of humanity's intrinsic fear of the uncanny valley, and how that is just mirrored with AI and stuff. And I was just thinking about how if that's even something that would even happen, because we're just thinking about it because that's our fear. But would AI need to go through those emotions? Would AI even need to just think about that processing, or could they just do something different? Do they need to be even like humans? Can they just do their own thing because they just have the power to do so? So, yeah.
Since I feel like she's talking to me, thank you, by the way. Like, it's not like I wake up pessimist, like I have to think, like, what are the real threats that we have, Like, like it worries me, and, it's, there's this interesting definition that people use, if you Google the acronym of FEAR, you guys have probably heard this, right? It's the false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. But the scary part is there's a lot of evidence that it's not false now. Like, I would love to just say it's the uncanny valley, it's our own limiting beliefs, like, take a cliche word, throw it out there. But, like, I think we're really at that time where it's like we have to determine, we talked about on the panel yesterday, when someone sends me a resume, I have 150 employees. If somebody hands me a resume, I could really care less what it says. I just don't trust them because you can easily create a GPT. I literally made a custom GPT that scans somebody's profile and scans a job description, writes a perfect perfect cover letter and a resume. It's a done deal. It's going to be perfect. Every hiring manager is going to look at it and be like, wow, this is a heaven sent, right? So it goes back to trust, okay? If there's one thing I can say to address that, we have to trust that people are going to do the right thing. And in history, I can tell you there is case and case and case of that just not being the case. So, what you said is accurate. I would trust somebody, basically the class of 2023 is probably the last class that will do homework, right? That's you. The class of 2023. My 11-year-old, the reason why I'm not letting him use ChatGPT, I know his lazy butt is going to use it. And I don't, I want him to learn how to do things hard. And, in my family, the Hunter family, we do hard things. We do hard things. And I want him to do hard things so that, I feel like we're, one of the reasons why we're in this escapade in the first place, and you'll see this, people graduating from college, not you, people that graduate from college and they expect to get a $75,000 a year contract with zero work experience and cannot add any value to a company because they're entitled. We have an entitled generation where they literally have safe spaces at colleges when their candidate doesn't win the election. So that's just where we're at. So how do we foster, maybe that's a question to your question, is how do we foster a society that actually cares about value and ethics, but at the same time is aware that there are people that don't have our best interest in mind?
One thing I do want to add really quick is that we absolutely do, we project onto everything that we do into AI. We want to establish some sort of bond with AI. It's a must. In order for this to be economically viable in the future, we have to incorporate AI into what we call our tribe. We need to be able to reason with it. We need to be able to communicate with it in a form that's that expresses empathy back towards us. What? Yeah. I think that's an important part of AI systems, is that its ability to understand and empathize with humans. So now, we don't need it, and AI doesn't need to have empathy. It's not an important thing for it to have, in my opinion, but it should have it. And I think that going forward, we're going to see developers try to program that in and simulate these things like empathy, simulate the soul, to simulate these things that really creates that bond with humans that allows us to take that step further and incorporate it into our tribe.
And now they're so empathetic that they lock us in our rooms to make sure that we don't get hurt. I think that it's iRobot, right? So I think that either way you go, where we've got risks, and to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, I don't think it's going to be any one vision of the future. I think it's going to be a lot of different futures for a lot of different people. There's going to be the preservationists, and they're going to be over here. But there's also going to be robot warfare in another country. Maybe it's not in our country yet, but it's in their country. So it's going to be a lot of different futures happening. One thing that I think is that the reason I felt the need to put the mic back up was that we talk a lot about they are going to program. There's been a real they are doing this, and we need to talk about what we can do. If they're building the bad robots, we should build the good ones. You know what I'm saying? I think that what AI does is it democratizes technology to a certain extent. There's computing power, and there's assembly lines and machines and like this. But I do think that we have more power than ever before to create protection, freedom, and these things for our families using the technology. And we shouldn't let that go. We should think, hey, well, if they're going to do this, then I should do this. And that's what should motivate. I want that to motivate me, not necessarily what you're doing, but what I could do and what my vision is.
I really like that view, and really, I said it earlier about it's not AI is not a big giant thing. It's a million different use cases. So if emotions, and I actually look at human emotions the same way. If you really observe, like, why do we feel fear, and
AI.
and why do we have all these different things? Most of the time, if you look historically of like the development of humanity, you have these emotions to protect you against things, right? Like we have fear because there were, wild beasts out and we had to be scared. We needed that sense of security. That's another emotion. We needed that so we could protect our families and move on with our lives and get our jobs done. I think it's going to be the same thing with AI. It's individual use cases. If you have a nurse bot, you do want them to have a lot of empathy for their, patient. And that's a useful emotion for them to have. And so if it makes sense, then yeah, they should have it. Now, the Uncanny Valley side, there's humans that are Uncanny Valley. So we already deal with that. And a lot of people think that the entire concept of Uncanny Valley came from seeing, people who were sick. And, back when they didn't know what caused sickness, seeing somebody that didn't look normal or was acting differently was a protection mechanism for maybe a community. And so even that emotion came from a base of survival and instinct that we actually needed to be human.
Your question was so good. Good answers. Has Hollywood been lying to us? And I actually just published a YouTube video called Why I Believe Hollywood is Lying to Us About AI. So I believe they are. I think for years, we've been set up with this picture of what artificial intelligence could be, which is a very scary future. And I think Hollywood and the media have really leaned into that. It's sold a lot of box office hits, and it's created this picture that we kind of live with, which has created a projection of how we see AI. But really, AI is not this alien technology that dropped out of the sky and is going to kill us all. It's the progression of computing chips. We have left the era of generalized computing because of NVIDIA's inventions. Jensen Huang invented the new chip. And so we've left an era of computing. We've entered a new era of computing called accelerated computing. And to me, this is nothing to fear. I mean, I'm going the opposite direction of the farm. I sold my Texas farm to work in AI. And I'm not on the crazy side.
But you moved to Arizona and not Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah,
there's a little bit of country left in you still.
Another red state.
Yeah.
So the media is lying to us.
Have you seen Scottsdale? It's beautiful.
Once. I never went back. No, I'm kidding. It's nice.
Hi, my name is Alex, longtime listener, fellow Palanos. I just wanted to know, we talked a lot about AGI and quantum, and I wanted to know specifically from Jordache what he thinks about ASI, because he's been eyeballing me the whole time, and I really need to know what he thinks about ASI. That's artificial social superintelligence.
Can we get a guest appearance right here? Can we get him up stage? Let's welcome Jordache to the stage. Let's go! Yeah, we just have him sit right there. Yeah. Let's go.
What was the question? ASI? Arizona State Institution.
I like it.
No, I mean, the reality that comes down to this is there's two levels of AI right now that we know. We know the stuff that's out from a consumer standpoint, but we know there's stuff being worked in the labs, being worked on things behind it. And one of my questions, I want to get y'all's input on this, is I feel like there needs to be some form of regulation, but who's going to decide on that regulation, right? We got but we got the EU that has passed the AI Act that they've been working on for 3 years, 2 days ago, right? But I'm not part of the EU. But we look at the people, I'm in the United States, and I got congressmen that do not know how Facebook ads work. And you're going to sit here and try to ask, how are you going to regulate this space? So I'm going to pass the question to you guys. How do we actually regulate something? Because there is some scared opportunity with this technology that we may or may not understand, but how do we actually regulate that? I'm just going to be the host for a second.
Oh, yeah, you're going to be the host. Awesome. And we actually talked about this previously, is that we're already experiencing the foundations of what we need to create regulation. This whole lawsuit with OpenAI and Elon Musk is the foundations that we need and the conversations we need to have to create regulations. So when it comes down to what we need pain. We need people to see the pain in order
How much pain is that required?
Too much pain. Too much pain.
Because look, we're gonna talk political here for a second.
Yeah,
right?
we are. Yeah.
Like straight up, like the reality that comes down to like, look, we're in America. We got problems with guns. I'm a gun owner. I'm in Texas.
And we see how that's going.
And we see how that's going. But so how much pain does it require before action's actually happening?
So money.
And I'm pro guns. Trust me. You come to my house, we're gonna have a problem.
Money speaks.
Money speaks.
And that's the whole statement right there.
It's gonna be the rich guys can do it, but you can't do it.
Right.
And so I'm kind of like, and I'm just like a brute on this question, but I'm a 2FA guy, right? Second Amendment. If 100%. You can have it, we can have it.
100%.
So, you can't make choppers that can kill us if we can't make the same thing for you, right? And that's my brutish sort of like.
Welcome to Texas.
Get her done. Yeah, let's go. Is Austin still in Texas?
I mean,
barely.
I mean, hold on now. I live in Houston. Yeah. So, but
there
I live I live on the outskirts of Houston for a second, all right? Like, let's clarify this for a second. But you bring up a good point though, right? Because the reality that comes down to that is, okay, let's translate that back to AI for a second. If we know, like, you look at what's the company Peter, what's the guy from PayPal?
Oh, Elon Musk. No, I was kidding.
No.
Joking.
The VC, the billionaire from PayPal. He was the VC for PayPal. Now he runs the government contracting company. Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Right. You understand what he's doing with the government when it comes to AI, right? We don't have access to that right now, but they're doing some crazy stuff that we, as a consumer, don't have a reality of what's actually happening. So it goes back to your question: if they're going to try to regulate what models we have, how does that actually translate to what can we have that they can't have? I'm curious on what y'all's points are on that.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean it's a fight. That's the fight, I think. I think they already have stuff that we don't have. But I also think there's nothing on the books that says we can't have it because those policy conversations haven't come up yet. So we're in the wild, wild west right now, and we have to be putting together that case right now. I feel like we get into this place of, I like Elon. From what I've read in Walter Isaacson's book and the 15-second clips I see on Instagram, I like him. I have no idea if that's really Elon, right? So when Elon's like, we got to have this thing and talk about whether we're all going to do it, I get that. But, like, are you really going to do it, or is it more about what you can do and what we can't do? And so that's where we need to have our people involved. And I think the same 2FA lawyers could be involved in this as well. But we have to start thinking about what happens when they come in and they say content at scale cannot. Well, the Chinese could get a hold of that, and it's a weapon, you can't use it anymore. Only they can control it. I feel like maybe I'm getting into a slippery slope, but we have to take it to them.
I love that, because the thing is about, like, Sam Altman going to speak in front of Congress. Hey, we got to slow everybody down. I'm like, you have the top products.
Yeah.
Like, what you?
Matt, me and you were talking about this at lunch, right? The reality is the genie's out the bottle. Right, you can put all the regulations you want in place, but the reality is anybody with a computer can access the open source model, can leverage, and open source are only getting more powerful. So that's when I start looking at, like, regulation. Like, you can't regulate this right now. Like, the genie it's gone. He's hanging out, and he's like, you can't put him back in the lamp. So that's when, like, I look at these regulations, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. But, like, the reality is, it's like, you can regulate all you want, but it really doesn't matter. Is it really a political ploy at this point in time?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was an accurate portrayal of my thoughts. I'm actually a fan of regulation. I think regulation's a good thing. I think it creates guardrails so companies sort of know what lane to stay in. So I think that's a good thing. But this is one of those things where I don't feel like regulations can ever work, because unless it's regulated on, like, a global scale, which will never happen. How are you going to get all of the countries in the world to come together and agree on some sort of regulated
And there's always rogue countries. You can get 80% of the countries, but you're going to look at some of the other countries and be like, you know what, that's cute. And it's equivalent to blockchain, right? You look at the flow of money. Anybody that regulates blockchain, that's like, cool, I'm going to move my stuff to this country that doesn't have a regulation. It's going to be the same exact thing with AI. So you can't, if you regulate it, all it's going to do is cut off your economy from being able to access that. Jeff?
And let's
Jeff?
just,
Yeah.
and let's
Hey,
just,
I want to talk.
Hey,
Jane,
if
come
I'm-
on,
hey,
Jane.
If I'm Iraq, if I'm Iran, if I'm Russia, if I'm like someone from the evil axis or whatever, I'm just throwing this out there hypothetically, I would love nothing more than to say, hey, let's come to the table and make a global agreement. Right? Like, I would totally love to make everybody believe that I'm actually going to curb my uranium production and my AI production and everything else.
All right, let's go to that question over here.
Okay, it's not really a question. It's, I mean, I came here and this conversation has gone a lot of different directions. So I'm gonna pull it back, and it's like, you know, when I think about regulation and I think about other people making decisions for me, I get really nervous. And it was a conversation I had, I think, earlier today, but back in the 1800s, they had in college liberal arts, which was actually called the art of liberty. And it taught people how to think, how to be civil, how to be sovereign within their own world. And if we want to advance AI and we want to advance a better world, then we have to advance critical thinking. We have to advance within our own citizenship a responsibility for themselves and empower them in that way. Regulation only helps the people that make the decision about regulation. It never helps us. So when we start walking down that path, I want to say no. Let's say no to that path. Let's say yes to teaching our kids how to be incredibly mindful, sovereign, empowered, and thinking in a way that our group think has taken away from them the right to think clearly. And that's how we solve this problem.
100%. I love that statement. And here's the thing, is that sovereign AIs are going to exist throughout every single country. There's going to be sovereign AI for every single country, but beyond that is personalized AIs. We're talking about AIs personal to you, all your own data, your personal assistant, everything. And critical thinking plays a key component into that usage. My nephews, I actually teach them how to use AI, but I started from the basis of critical thinking because it starts there. It starts with developing your critical thinking skills and then using AI on top of that. And
we have a history of smart, incredible people in all of history. We have Aristophanes, we have John Locke, we have founding fathers, we have tons and tons of our cultural, while we go in one way, we go in another way where they say if we can build the sovereignty of a human being, we can create a new world we can't even imagine. And so let's not forget our history to move forward more responsibly.
Wow, I feel like she's giving a speech right now.
Yeah,
that
I know.
was so good.
What a great. Go ahead.
Last one.
Are you really?
I look like I was about to get cut
Yeah.
off.
Last question.
I just wanted to say thank y'all for coming out and giving this. Y'all are actually a true voice to people that filter their content. And John Jay, dude, your kid that's lazy. Hey, your kid that's lazy. Look, I give everything I know to lazy people because they find the easiest way to do it. So actually embrace that, right? And I talked to Matt earlier. My kid's fixing to get paid off of watching his content and giving me an essay over it. And I don't care if he uses ChatGPT. What I do care is that he listens to the content. So my question is to y'all, once AI gets to a point, is there a point in life where AI doesn't really replace you, but it does what you do? And you allow it or you don't?
I build the software that does it.
Yeah, well, allow it. If somebody wants to keep on doing the thing that could be done automatically and maybe for free, then yeah, go ahead and do it. But it doesn't mean it's going to be profitable or worthwhile or make any money. But maybe we need to stop thinking like that anyways. Like maybe we should just do stuff because it's enjoyable and it adds to our lives and stop thinking about does it make me money and is it profitable? Because I actually live a large part of my life like that and it's not very much fun. So, yeah, I think you should do whatever you think is worthwhile with your time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat. I let it work for me, right? I think we're going to enter a world with AI where we let the AI do the stuff we don't want to do, and we get to spend the time enjoying the stuff we do want to do. So I think, I'm letting the AI do it for me. And to, speak to your first comment, what you call lazy, I call resourceful. When I was in college, I used Elance to help with some of my article writing, and yeah.
Now, and what I'll say is, like, the reality that comes down to this is there's a line, though, like, and you need to know the line. Like, there's tools out there right now. If you actually read their terms and conditions or actually feed their terms and conditions into ChatGPT and tell you what you're actually giving up, I'm like, yo, like, I don't care how amazing your tool is, you ain't getting access to that, right? But at the same time, I do want a Jarvis in my life. I want a Rosie in my life, right? I'm gonna date myself from the Jetsons, but there are things that, like, will make my life so much easier and better, because it goes back to what you're saying. There's things I don't want to do, right? But at the same time, there's some things, like, there's a tool out there right now that says, we will be your personal assistant, but we're going to record everything that goes on your computer screen, every keystroke you take, everything. I'm like, I like what you're saying, but, like, nah, bro. You ain't getting that, right? Like, that, I don't care what, like, figure out a different way to solve that problem, but you're not going to basically start recording my keystrokes on my computer, because that opens up a whole nother avenue of privacy. So, like, I think to go back to your question, I think what it comes down to it as is us as individuals, we didn't know where that line's at. And you got to draw that line for yourself, and you may have to give up some opportunity for that, but at the end of the day is, what are you giving up for that? And I know where my line's at, and I know there's tools that would give me what I want, but I'm not giving them what they want to give me that solution at that point in time.
Content at scale does not share any proprietary information.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
I helped write the code of ethics, and we do not. No, literally, like, there are parameters built in our tool that do not allow the sharing of any input you put in any project or any of that whatsoever. It doesn't go out to feed the LLMs, and it doesn't go out to any other client project. And this is a concern, the security. It's a huge concern. That's actually been a selling point, like an entire selling point whenever I've been in workshops with Fortune 500s. So I think it's like, how are we using these tools? What do their TOSs say? We're going to have to read the TOS, not just click agree. It's important to be doing that, because there is a lot of scary things written in these terms, but not ours.
Or plug the terms of service into Claude and say, hey, are there any gotchas I should know about in this terms of service?
Thank you so much for watching Humanity Unchained. This has been what an incredible first episode.
Yes,
Holy cow.
yes.
We had a special co-star here, a special co-host. Just hop on the stage. Fantastic. I don't know how we're going to do an episode 2 to this.
Run it back.
Yeah, like,
Run it back.
Yeah. Let's do this all again next week.
all again next week. You guys down next week again? Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Of course you're
Yeah,
down.
of course you're down.
I wasn't asking you.
Hey, this was fantastic. Thank you all for being here and watching. And for everybody watching at home, I hope you subscribe and like and follow the channel. Let's do one final round of shout-outs. Shout out your channels, whatever you want to promote, and we'll wrap it there.
Yeah, you can just look me up on YouTube at Matt Wolfe. Just search out Matt Wolfe. You'll find me.
Everywhere on the web at Owen Video.
Yeah. MarkDeGrasse.com. Do the daily video. That's where I'm going to share the crazy stuff.
Jeff J. Hunter. I just recently got my Google panel, so you can find me now on Google.
Good job. I was worried. Julia McCoy.
My name is Jeff. I do AI. It says so on my badge, so it must be true. It says he does AI. Jeff Joyce on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find me.
I'm an 80s baby who mothers love the jeans. You can find me at Jordache Johnson or Jordache.ai or Never Tech Behind.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
And that concludes today's event. Feel free to hang out, talk with us. Julia's going to go take a nap.